The next step is to put a little bit of material in the basin. You don't want to fill it all up, but you do want to get a little bit of material down before you put your mesh back in. If you let your bucket sit too long while you're waiting before you pour it, what will happen is all that cream will rise to the surface and all your aggregate will go to the bottom. So you kind of want to dump it as fast as you can, because you don't want to dump a lot of liquid and then a lot of stone. You want to try to dump it all together at the same time.
If you're too thick, stay away from the edges.
Yes. If it's real thick, you want to stay away from your edges. You want a lot of cream on the edges because that's what's going to come into contact with your design. Okay? Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. Liquid release on your mold, on your inserts, okay? It doesn't take a lot. But it will keep your insert a lot cleaner so the cement can break away. You understand? There we go. It's a small step, but it saves you a little bit of cleaning up. Okay. Another thing too, this kind of helps, a little professional tip. When you're mixing your product, mix up several buckets at a time. And then right before you pour, just hit them all once again. That way, we're able to dump the whole load pretty much consecutively, because downtime, you know, you're waiting.
Yeah, so you just want to put your water in first.
Hang on a second, let me get this mesh down. I got one more piece. Okay, we're good. So, at this point, after we get a little bit of material in the base, now we're going to add the geogrid or the fiberglass mesh. And then we're going to embed it in between there. I go halfway or a little less than halfway, as long as there's some cement in there first before you put the fiberglass mesh in. That's what you're looking for.
Does it matter if the felt bubbles off a little bit or anything like that? That's not important.
No, I mean, you don't want it to come to the surface. But if there's any undulation in the felt underneath, you're never going to see that.
And this just floats right in.
And what you want to do is you want to kind of make sure that your fiberglass mesh doesn't touch your insert wall. And just kind of bury it in there, get it nice and, you know, you don't want your mesh to buckle, because you don't want it to get too close to your surface. Because good luck trying to move it after all that material's in there. You know what I'm saying? So flatten it out so it's in there. So far, does anybody feel like this isn't something they can do? Is it too technical? Is it too physically demanding? It's okay, you can raise your hand.
Todd, you okay?
Everybody all right? Good. I don't have to collect any man cards. This is real easy, guys. It really is. I'm not a concrete mason. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So, once again, you can see having all this material staged up, this could go very, very quickly. We're spending a lot of time just waiting for the material. And that's pretty much what you don't want. This isn't too bad because it takes this stuff a while to set up initially. But if you're having, if you're doing the vertical mix, I'm gonna make sure that we got several buckets ready to go. Because what you don't want is you don't want long periods of time while you're putting up vertical mix, because while you're putting up vertical mix, it's already starting to set up. And you can't have it setting up and then loose and setting up and loose and setting up. That just kind of throws you off. You want to make sure that you're all together going on. Right on in. Thanks, Brett. You guys are monsters. Got it?
With the crew going, as you're kind of, still maybe, putting on the sidewalls, have them start mixing, or?
Yeah. This whole process goes pretty quick. So after you do this a couple times, you'll know when to key your guys to start mixing. Because it doesn't take, once we're all, got our pieces up and everything's, all the side rails are installed and all that, you can wait. But for me, once I get that pattern laid out, I tell the guys, all right, start getting ready. We're going to start mixing. Because once I get a section done, we're moving forward. For those of you guys who don't know much about concrete, this is called a float, all right? And what's happening is he's just kind of jittering it up a little bit, shaking it up a little bit, and that's just bringing the cream to the surface and allowing the heavy rock to kind of sink down to the bottom. What we want to do is we want to keep it nice and creamy on the top so that when we stamp it, we've got a little bit of cream to stamp to. If you don't shake it or flatten it out and kind of vibrate it a little bit, you're going to have rock and stone very close to the surface, and it's not going to receive your texture very well. For those of you who've never done any concrete work, we're just floating it out a little bit.
And the fact that you texture most tops is actually an advantage.
Right. Because we're texturing the top, that's to our advantage. So if there is,
You don't have to be a skilled finisher because a lot of times you're putting a texture on there which hides a lot of issues you might have. That's a nice thing about it. You don't have to worry about being perfect because it's not going to be. It's an outdoor table. It's texture top.
okay, at this time, you can go back and pull your set nails because the material is now holding the form up against the wall. So we don't need those anymore. And now our form liner is set, it's up against the wall, and everything's fine. So while they're screening that out, I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to tap the sides. You could take I've seen guys take the blade off of a jigsaw, take a blade off of a sawzall or whatever, just so there's some type of vibration. Or as palm sander, sure. You're just wanting that to settle in so it picks up that design perfectly. So what he's doing with this screeder right here is making sure that everything's flat and level. And he's just basically using the outside edge of our forms as the guide, so it's perfectly flat. So I know a lot of you guys probably have never worked, per se with concrete in this fashion. But basically what you're doing is you're just casting your own countertop. You're casting your own seat wall. You're casting your own sill or whatever, It's not difficult. There are steps that you need to, make sure that you're doing it right. But there's no hidden agenda here. This is all, whatever you're seeing it's really simplistic. As long as it's level and flat, go back, kind of hit the edges. That's great.